Hello, hello. Hello, lads. Can you hear me well? Let me put my screen. Welcome for the 6th public stream. I'm gonna be alone today, and I think we're gonna stream probably 1 hour, a little bit more if there is more to discuss, depending on your question and chat requests. Plan for the stream is going to be pretty straightforward. I want to make a quick update first on Bitcoin situation, H4 and daily, which has been two of my main focuses, especially the H4 EMA compression for anyone that was either in the Haven or in Discord. It's probably a plan that you've seen me discuss, particularly last week. So we're gonna be make a small update on this one, and then I want to discuss ETH USDT and ETH BTC pair, which are two of my main focuses also. And after that, we can move on to some chat requests. I'm gonna open a block note so I can keep track of the chat requests you guys do during the stream, and I will do my best to cover as much as possible. I can't promise we're gonna have everything covered. If the market starts going crazy, it's also possible that I cut the stream short so that I can make the best out of market movements. Other than that, if you have any questions, whether it's trading question about the Haven, question about shitcoins or whatever, don't hesitate to ask, and I will do my best to answer. Let me know if you can see everything well, if you can hear me well, if you can hear my broken English correctly. I'm finishing my coffee and then we can start. Hello 5O Trading, comment vas-tu? Hello Titouan, Dan, Evil Jiminy, Luap, Kels, Cricket Room, Spiral Head, Libby, welcome everyone. Titouan, we're gonna be discussing your question when we get to ETH. And yeah, another, I feel like so many deja vu in terms of headlines in the market, and with once again Middle East shit show and all of those things. One can hope that it's just yet another case of nothing ever happens. That's the best we can hope for anyone involved, and particularly people who never asked for anything and constantly get their life shattered because of boomers who can't get along. So hopefully it's one of those cases again, especially considering that the market's looking pretty great and that we have some interesting things developing. I can also, through the stream, discuss of the main coins I've been interested in lately and that I've been trading the most. This includes obviously Bitcoin, ETH, Aave, Fatcoin, Hype, which have been the 5 main things I've been trading lately. I would assume that some of you could be interested. Got it. Stop loss. Why you gave such noob call? Yeah, that sucks. That sucks. Good thing is that that was a small risk trade on GOATs. Tried to play the H4 EMA compression retest on it, but it did not survive the overnight headlines, I would say. But that's a setup I would go for every day. Super wide stop loss. Yeah, if you can read, I literally said meme coin plus wide invalidation, size down accordingly. No need to go big on such plays at all. I don't know, maybe learn to read, mate. All right, let's move on. So yeah, gonna keep an eye on the news just in case through the stream if anything new comes out of this Iran-Israel situation. Would assume that through the day it's likely what's going to have, if any news through the day has an impact on the market, I would assume that it's probably this one, short term at least. So yeah, let's keep an eye on that. So Bitcoin thoughts, for those who were either in the Haven, either on the Telegram or even on Twitter, I shared that last week one of the main scenario I had was a H4 EMA compression For anyone that's been in the previous public stream, that's something that we discussed extensively, and that was one of the main focus we had across the board when we had first strong trends or break and our main moving averages such as the 100 MA. A quick reminder before we start the stream, in case anyone is new to the stream, in my charts, the three main moving averages you can see here are what I usually refer to as the trend. This is a combination of 10 to 30 EMA. To be precise, it's 10, 13, 25, 32 EMA. And after that, the green dotted one you can see here is 100 MA. The black stairs you can see over here is the 200 EMA, and the purple, pink one is the 300 MA. So I put this out there before we start the stream. So yeah, if you have not watched the previous stream, I encourage you to do so, especially considering the time we spent discussing EMA compressions. So yeah, last week main scenario, as soon as we started to break through in 100 MA, was a gap fill / 100 H4 EMA compression, which basically means that at this point we expect 200 EMA to be disrespected, especially as it's flattening. We want to see the 300 MA defended, 300 MA region defended, even more as it gets in confluence with what's been weak lows and support in previous consolidation. And the 100 MA is the must break. The main upside target that we had was the 109.5, 110.5, mostly because of the highs printed end of May. So played out quite nicely, not perfectly. The two things that I would have preferred to see would have been a proper retest of the 300 MA, obviously. Unfortunately, cannot be perfect. And maybe more compression. A tighter compression would have given a better opportunity to scale within that compression, but so be it. So from here, what's the main idea? We can see that indeed the 109.5, 110.5 has been a strong resistance and has printed a local top for us. And the two main focuses I had going into today and in the rest of the week were H4 trend, simply because when we have a EMA compression, if I'm expecting us to have a significant exit of the compression, ideally, I want to see the trend defended. I'm going to give you two examples from the daily time frame. The first one being from this year, we can see similar pattern, trend breaks, we start consolidating, 100 MA breaks, we fill all the gaps, we start to tighten, we have an exit of the compression, and the trend is defended into new leg. We can take last year example also, strong trend starts to break, we fill the gap to 100 MA, initially defended, lost, we fill all the gaps, we tighten, this time infinitely more. That was a fantastic compression to play, especially with the confluence of the US election. And after that, we exit the compression and the trend is defended. So that's why going into this week, my two main ideas were, if we defend H4 trend on an H4 trend defense, I would see this as a short-term strength signal, and I would expect us to see a new all-time high printed. And if we fail to defend the H4 trend, as we did overnight, I would expect, or at least I would want to see the H4 100 MA down to H4 200 MA region. So that's approximately 104 to 106.5 ish defended if retested. And we are right in the middle of the two now. We are in this situation where we want to see H4 trend rapidly reclaimed. By that I mean closing H4 rapidly back above, could be in the next few H4 candles. If that's the case, I would expect us to retest the highs that we printed earlier in the week. And if H4 trend is flipped resistance, I would get ready to see this region retested, and that would be a very big test in my opinion for the short-term price action, and I would say by short-term at least end of the week, if not more. What I mean by that is, personally, if we were to get back or to lose the H4 EMA compression, I would see this as a signal that the daily trend is not respected anymore, in the sense of strong trend lost, back above. If we are getting back below, I will read this as any trending indicator, meaning that trend is respected. Main conclusion should be to expect chop fest. If we're looking for a very good example of that, we obviously have the end of the daily trend in December last year, we can see that the trend is lost, reclaimed, lost. This was a very strong signal of chop fest incoming, and we basically ranged for 2 months after that. I'm not saying it's gonna end the same way after that. I'm mostly just saying that if the daily trend after this deviation cannot find support, cannot be defended, I will likely play with a much more conservative approach and more defensive approach until new signs of trending. And I would probably try to focus on isolated trends that we could have in the shitcoin world. That would be the best case scenario in such scenario. So yeah, that's the main idea. If I have to summarize things on the H4 charts for you guys, the main idea for me going into the rest of the afternoon is a fight to reclaim the 107.5 up to 108.5. This is basically the H4 trend region. If reclaimed, I think we are good and we have a local low for the day at least, and maybe even for the rest of the week, unless we have more bad news coming from Middle East. And if it's flip resistance, that's the moment I'm gonna have to be ready to see if we have any kind of retest in this region. And it's a place I would be willing to give a shot, as for me, it would be key to be defended. I'm not excluding any kind of vast fuckery, especially if the move is news driven. So I would not necessarily bid instantly or with full size H4 100 MA retests. I would likely try to scale and see how far it can go, with an invalidation being that if on an H4 basis we couldn't defend the entire 103, 102.5 up to 104, I would probably accept my loss on this compounding and just let things unfold a little bit, basically. So it's key afternoon ahead of us. I wish we were not in some sort of a I wish it was not a day where the market is very news driven, or at least worried about news. But it is how it is. It is how it is. So we keep an eye on the news, and we basically keep an eye on the 107.5, 108.5, and the entire H4 200 MA up to H4 100 MA retest. If we take a look at the daily time frame, it's slightly cleaner. Cleaner. I did my daily update for the event on the daily time frame, and I basically had nothing to change. We can see that we have the confluence of the daily trend with the highs from December and January, as I discussed. That makes even more sense for a place you want to see defended, in my opinion, and why I believe that any loss of the 102, 105 region on a daily basis is likely to be seen as a signal of caution, to say the least, and or chop fest. And my main read off of the daily chart is defend the daily chart. At the very least, we consolidate. Maybe we build some sort of a meme triangle or whatever. And if we start closing back inside the range, my two main priorities will be, at some point, my main conclusion could be that we have a classic summer kind of chop fest incoming, while the daily EMA structure catches up with price. And if at some point it's retested, that's likely a swing opportunity, especially if it's far into the summer. And if daily trend is just defended, I will assume that we have a daily trend continuation, and I will continue to play the way I did over the past 2 months now. So that's my main view on Bitcoin. Love you, Pierre. Pierre is so sexy. Yeah, thank you, mate. I need to do greetings from your retired German neighbor. Cheers, mate. I hope you have a good day. Congrats on being retired. I hope that you are enjoying your time away from the shackles of having to work. And congratulations if you made it through trading or any kind of other means. Very clear as usual. Thank you. Yeah, no worries. No worries. If you have any questions regarding all of that, don't hesitate. Just so we clear, any charts that we are discussing today, whether it's from Bitcoin to any shitcoins we're going to be discussing, will be shared in the Telegram channel after the stream, so that you can have access to the charts that we've discussed. If you want to take a look at them again, if you want to, I don't know, study them, or if you want to have a try to keep a trace of them, you will have access to them in the Telegram as usual. And I would assume it's likely for chat requests that you guys are going to be interested of that. So with all that being said, ETH has been the main focus for me. I think, when was our last public stream? I think our last public stream was, let me check. I think it was, okay, May 21. So it was not too far ago. That was already the case. ETH was my main and remains my main focus. And I explained why last time, but I will say it again this time. Basically, I've avoided touching ETH for basically the entire time we spent in the daily downtrends. It's been a very, very clean focus to have, especially at the beginning of the year. We can see that the daily downtrend was as clean as it could be. And the main indicator we had, sorry, that was streamed from Tuesday in the oven. Or yesterday, I can't remember. So yeah, the main idea we had on ETH BTC and the main approach we had on ETH was we don't want to be touching ETH over Bitcoin as long as the ETH BTC pair is in daily downtrend. The day we have daily close above daily downtrend plus H4200 EMA flipped, I will flip my focus back to ETH, or from Bitcoin back to ETH. That doesn't mean that I've swapped all my Bitcoin to ETH, obviously, but more so that I would be more interested in actively trading ETH over Bitcoin. Why H4200 EMA? Again, it's something that we discussed a lot in the last chat request, the last stream, but I would say it again. When I'm focused on the trend and I want to gauge whether it's lost or reclaimed, depending if it's an uptrend or a downtrend, I like to have an intraday indicator that can give me an early signal that we're gonna close above, for example. And what I usually do if I'm watching a daily trend is that I'm going to be watching H4200 EMA. If I'm watching H4 trend, I'm gonna be watching H1200 EMA, etc., etc. And if I have if in intraday I have the combination of ETH, not necessarily ETH, but the shitcoins I'm focused on to be closing above daily trend H4200 EMA, I see that as a strong signal that we have a chance of trend reversal and that I should be expecting gap fills. What gap fills mean? Basically, I'm using the way I'm seeing my system. It's EMA compression leads to trend leads to gap fills lead to EMA compressions. Gap fills is whenever the trend breaks, whether it's to the upside or the downside, and we try to capture the move back to 100 EMA, and then to 200 EMA, and then to 300 EMA. So obviously this is potentially a very good example of that. And yeah, when was the break? I think it was on May. Yeah, okay, that was May 9, as I said during this tweet. First significant break of the daily downtrend and H4200 EMA for ETH BTC. So if we get back over here, we can see that we have indeed blasted through H4200 EMA, which was the first time we did so in ages. You can see here a fake out where we closed above, immediately failed to flip its support. Usually a good signal to that fake out is incoming and that you should not give that much attention to it. But basically, it's been the main reason why I focused more on ETH over Bitcoin during the last 4 weeks, I would say. I missed the initial impulse when it started to move. I was mostly focused on shorting ETH during this entire time, as you guys can see. And the main invalidation I had on this latest compounding short that failed was just like for the ETH BTC pair, the break of the H4200 EMA that then flipped support. And you can see that it then held quite nicely until compression, and compression leads to trend. Again, compression, trend breaks, we fill the gaps, etc., etc. That's always the same thought process. However, managed to catch the H4200 EMA retest last week, but because it ended up being very messy, I decided to flip back to a more daily approach. Which is, so that's the exact same setup, just I put it on the daily, and it now looks like something like this. And to me, it's a very, do you strictly use the same EMA to gauge strength or weakness, or evaluate assets according to which trend they tend to respect? So the system applies the same moving averages to any kind of shitcoins and any time frame, mostly because as you probably noticed, I'm not the kind of EMA trader that focus on things such as crosses and things like this. I'm really much focused on a combination of simple horizontal levels plus short-term trend indicator, and the main moving averages are only here to give targets to the upside, and when we have compression, give me an idea of the timing where I could be expecting to see volatility. Now, to answer the rest of your question, I will indeed try to see on a shitcoin, a particular shitcoin, what it tends to respect more than others. If I realize, let's take, for example, TX. Let's take Tron as an example. Tron has been a very messy shitcoin when it comes to any time frames beside the weekly time frame. And because as you can see, it has respected the weekly trends basically since January 2023. When I see this kind of behavior, I'm gonna adapt the way I want to play the shitcoin. I rarely trade weekly time frame, but when I see this happening, I basically do, this is what I had mapped on the charts. Buy every weekly 32 EMA retest until it doesn't work anymore. If I realize that a shitcoin particularly respects 100 EMA more than the rest, God only knows why. In that case, I will try to focus on that. But it's very discriminatory, and it's extremely, and I would say it doesn't happen that often as we could think. Most often than not, if the system is respected, if the asset is trendy, I'm gonna have pretty much the exact same focuses, whether it's but yeah, again, I can happen to do so, but it's very contextual. That it's not something I do very often. Can someone advise what moving averages we're looking at? So as I said at the beginning of the stream, the three main moving averages you can see over here is what I'm going to refer as the trend. It's just three simple moving averages. It's 35, 25, 32. You can use anything between 10 and 30. I'm using 12, 25, and 32 as a relic from my days trading against bots on UOB and those kind of things. But it's only imaginary lines that are supposed to smooth the chart and price and just gives you an idea of the trend. If you use 10 and 30 instead of using 13, 25, 32, it's perfectly fine. Never forget that it's just imaginary lines on the chart. It doesn't have, and it's not meant to be perfectly respected. It's only here to give you an idea of the trendy behavior or the lack of it, as we discussed, for example, when the trend is not respected. After that, 100 MA, 200 MA, 300 MA. So 100 MA is the green dotted one, 200 MA is the stairs, black one, and 300 MA is the pink, purple one. I think it's pink. Yeah. If I hope that I was not going too fast for that. If ecosystem still lagging behind DeFi L2, do you think it will catch up in the near future? I have no idea, honestly. The only ETH beta, when I trade betas, so when it comes to trading alpha and beta, I've been brutalized by the uni sushi relationship in 2021. I think it was 2021. Let me check. I got brutalized by trading beta back in the day. If I'm not mistaken, basically, I saw sushi going from 0.05 all the way up to 7, which is pretty insane to say it that way. I had a bag of it, but my main idea was to long uni because I was expecting uni to catch up. It was both Texas, and we all had this idea of uni acting as a beta and catching up eventually. But as much as uni did great, it never performed as well as sushi did. Probably one of the biggest crime from FTX, by the way. And ever since that day in my journal, and I promised myself to always try to focus on the leader rather than the betas, and try to trade the leader well in the first place. Do well trading what leads, and if you're doing well / your position well on the one leading, then you can try to focus on betas. I can understand the appetite to go for the betas instead of the leading, because you would assume and you would expect betas to outperform and deliver bigger windows of volatility. But in my experience, as a representative of the mid-curve trader, and I would assume statistically that most of you guys here are just like me, hard grinding mid-curve trader, you would do better trying to trade the leader well in the first place and then see how it goes. Now, when it comes to your question, I honestly have no idea if the rest can catch up. Personally, the only ETH beta I'm comfortable trading and that I've traded through the years is Aave. Every time I'm trading ETH and every time I have a focus on ETH, I'm trading Aave. I used to do the same with ENS and Uni, but both have absolutely brutalized me in the past. So instead of Aave, which I've always found easier to trade, and you can see in the Aave section that Aave and ETH are basically two of my main focuses. So will they catch up? I have no idea. Maybe you're thinking of things like OP, ARB, LDO, all of that. Honestly, I have no idea. A part of your question could be answered first by trying to understand whether ETH has more in the tank and having invalidations on your ETH bullishness scenario. Because basically, if you have a clear read on ETH and if you know exactly what you want and don't want to see, at least you'll know if it's worth it to keep trying with the betas instead of just blindly trying to follow ETH. So yeah, have a good read on ETH first. Try to trade ETH well in the first place. It's volatile enough, I would say. And then if you want to go with lower size and risk on betas, you can do so. But I obviously have no crystal ball. I cannot tell you if they are going to catch up or not. What I like with a beta usually is it something that has the consensus of a beta? Is it basically something that people like to trade and consider that it's what they want to focus on? Basically, I would assume that when people are bullish on ETH lately, they are mostly watching things like Pepe, Uni, Aave. I might be mistaken. Maybe it's my BAs, but that's usually the way I read it. And yeah, that plus an easy narrative to sell. And that's why I like Aave, because it's been historically a good pumper, which means that people tend to get back to it quite easily because in their mind, they keep remembering how hard it tends to move. And we've seen that at the end of last year. And it has also a fairly easy narrative to read. So personally, I have a focus mostly on ETH and Aave when it comes to the ETH shitcoinery ecosystem. So can we take a look at Uniswap and Aave? 100%. Both of them are listed. In the example was H4 200 MA, but for example, it's the H1 100 MA. I did not understand your question, but apparently I answered it already. And Fatcoin, obviously I can add it to the list. So let's take a look at ETH. I already covered ETH BTC. So if I had to say one thing on ETH BTC, which, sorry, this is not the good chart. It's the main idea, but it's a less clean chart. So it's fighting with key resistance right now. It's basically the high that we printed mid-May, and that has denied us a couple of times now, yesterday included. I think that if/when we break through it, we fill the gap to daily 200 MA, and if it ends up being a resistance, we basically repeat the same game plan that we've had in this region, which will be must break daily 200 MA, must defend daily trend. So ideally, you want to see daily trend keeps being defended. If that's the case, we're going to be watching the next gap fill to daily 300 MA. So one gap fill after the other. And if/when we fill the gap to daily 200 MA, it's extremely likely that I flip, especially if Bitcoin is bullish in parallel, it's extremely likely that I use the opportunity to flip back some of my ETH exposure back to Bitcoin. But we are definitely not quite there yet. There is still a 6% gap to fill in a context where we want to see Bitcoin fighting hard for its life and for the levels that we discussed at the beginning of the stream. But yeah, keep this in mind for the ETH BTC pair. And what would make me retrace from my bullishness on ETH? Two things, obviously. The first thing would be the daily trend to be lost on Bitcoin. Okay, I'm going to say it another way. I'm going to say it another way. I'm going to write it down so that it's as clear as possible, especially considering that I'm going to be sharing this chart with you guys. In my book, the ETH Trinity bullishness is BTC above daily trend, which is, to me, basically the main trigger whether I'm willing to be looking for longs across the board or not in a wider approach of the market. Obviously, sometimes Bitcoin is going to be in daily downtrend, but we're going to have some long exposure to isolated trends in shitcoins. But in general, BTC above daily trend and ETH BTC above daily trend. These are the two main indicators. And the third one that I always put in quotes, because if 1 and 2 are true, obviously the third one is true, but I always add it just in case. So what would make me review my bullishness on ETH? The first thing would be if Bitcoin shows weakness and if BTC lose daily trend. Basically, if two of these conditions are not true anymore, I will be approaching ETH and the market in general with much more caution than I've been doing over the past couple of weeks or so. And yeah, that's going to be the main approach. So yeah, that's for ETH BTC. Now let's take a look at the ETH USDT daily charts and H4 charts, and then we will be able to move into chat requests if you have any. So to me, the daily charts is the cleanest on ETH right now. So this is from my stream yesterday, and obviously it still remains perfectly true. We have a fairly clean resistance that we hit yesterday with this consolidation from February, which to me is the last resistance to fill this inefficiency that we've had all the way up to 3.0, 3.1K. So that's the resistance that we've had lately. And to me, what would make me compound on my long exposure on ETH would be a daily trend plus daily 300 MA. So that's the purple one you can see here that acted as resistance, plus daily trend confluence retest. We are not quite there yet. The daily trend still has to catch up with this level. But for example, if we were to consolidate a little bit in this region while the daily trend catches up with price and with this previous resistance, that would make a very good confluence to compound. If I'm not offered that compounding, that likely means that it's moving more aggressively than I could have thought, in which case I might go back to H4 to look for setups. And so we're going to take a look at the ETH USDT H4 charts, which I believe is this one. So basically so that's what we had in mind for ETH over the last couple of updates that I shared lately. Where was that from? That was from stream yesterday, I think. So yeah, the main idea we had, if TradingView wants to work, the main idea we had is we've had a fairly obvious resistance printed in the 2.68, 2.7K region over the past month or so. Every time we went there, that was our main target on any kind of longs we took during the entire month of JobFest, and the H4 trend catching up with it. So as basics as that, on H4, the main idea was we want to see the confluence of previous resistance plus H4 trend defended. At least it's in process. I don't know if we can scream victory yet. Managing to reclaim and defend H1 trend here in this region would be a good signal that the H4 trend is defended. But basically that's the main idea. So it's not my main focus. As I said, I'm mostly focused on the daily time frame. But if ETH starts to move more aggressively from here, I will flip back to this H4 chart and I will be focused on trying to compound on H4 trend retests. For now, this is the first H4 trend retest we had, so I couldn't focus much on it just yet. But that's for the future. And yeah. So short term, I guess we can also say that if we start seeing ETH losing the 2.65, 2.67 region, I would not be surprised if we have another tap of the H4 200 MA in daily trend region. If that was to be the case, we will see if we want to compound or not. But it's basically my main approach when it comes to ETH. So if I summarize things, H4 ETH BTC is my main trigger to decide that I want to focus on ETH or not. The main idea is we want to see daily trend defended. And as long as daily trend is defended, I think we can fill the gap to daily 200 EMA. If/when we get to daily 200 EMA, we want to see if it hacks us resistance or if we blast through it just like we did for 100 EMA. I would retract from my ETH bullishness in a scenario where Bitcoin loses the daily trend and ETH BTC cannot defend the daily trend itself. And when it comes to the USDT pair, my main focus short term remains the resistance we tapped yesterday and the overall 2.6, 2.7 region that I think you want to see flipped support, mostly because it acted as such a strong resistance basically since mid-May. So this is my main views when it comes to the ETH game plan and the main ETH focuses. So I don't know if you guys have any questions when it comes to ETH. Actually, so I had a question at the beginning of the stream. Someone asked, I think it was T1, once your ETH, how to position yourself. So as I said, the two main approach for me to compound on my current exposure would either be a retest of this kind, where we have a confluence retest of the previous resistance plus daily trend and plus daily 300 MA, or, and that could be a very good case for the market, if Ethereum starts to move more aggressively and defend H4 trend, which it retested for the first time today. You can try to focus on H4 trend until it doesn't work anymore, basically. So H4 trend, if it's defended today, and from here you can use it for your active trading / intraday trading. Otherwise, focus on the daily time frame and this basic previous resistance you want to see flip support. How do you make use of the Stock RSI together with the moving averages? I'm only using Stock RSI when I'm riding a trend. Let me look for, I have an article in the Diaven Whoop Educational Library about trend following setups, which are basically setups I'm going to be focusing post compressions, and that I usually call or refer to as ideal trend development. And it's mostly in this environment and this scenario that I'm going to be watching the Stock RSI. In that case, I'm going to use Stock RSI as a timing indicator on when I want to compound on the trend retests. The two main the indicators for me to expect a consolidation post impulse is the distance between price and trend itself. And from there, I'm gonna have three conditions. I'm gonna want to see the local low forming, ideally in confluence with previous horizontal level flipped support, so a basic horizontal support resistance flip, trend catching up with price, combination of two being defended, and while this happens, so while the previous resistance flipped support and the trend is catching up with price, I want to see Stock RSI resetting, so going back from overbought to oversold. And when it's the case, if the three conditions are met together, it's my trigger to position myself. So I'm mostly using Stock RSI as a momentum / timing indicator within trending environments. Beside that, I'm not watching it much. I'm gonna be watching it. It's on my chart, but for example, I'm not one to trade. I'm not one to particularly trade. What's the name again? I'm losing my English already. It's been 45 minutes. You know the name, fuck it. Div. Daily divs and things like this. I'm not using Stock RSI that way. I'm just using it as a momentum / timing indicator within trendy environments. All right. If you need more from me, Cricket Room, don't hesitate to ask. But basically, when I have a trend within an asset, I'm gonna be watching it. Actually, we can argue of a ideal trend development from ETH, where we have the strong impulse, and we can see that we have a wide distance between price and trend. Consolidation, the trend catches up with price while the stock is resetting back in the oversold territories. And we have a low that gets defended in that process, which can be a good indicator of continuation. And that's the best we can hope for Vitamin Coin, obviously. I need to take a quick look at HYPE, which is pushing it to nice levels. I'm extremely lucky on this setup. I'm going to show you guys why. I longed that setup before leaving on Friday, last Friday. And basically I said, this was my last update. Where can I look it? That was here. Before I left, again, if TradingView decides to work, I had this. I had this on my chart, and my plan was, if I'm active and I see that we lost / failed to reclaim H410 and H4100 MA, I would exit. I kept my stop loss, obviously, especially after it printed this week. I left for the weekend, mostly being AFK, so I couldn't manage the position, and I came back, it deviated below reclaimed. I would have, if I was active, I would have probably exited the position on this close over here, mostly because my main assumption would have been to see either a gap fill to 200 EMA, either some consolidation. So I consider myself extremely lucky on this setup right now. Sometimes it happens, sometimes you're lucky. I'd rather be honest about it. It's not some sort of magic trick. I was just mostly lucky on that. And I actually compounded on HYPE today, mostly off of that 15-minute 300 MA retest. But I took some off at the 100 MA, and I did not compound it after that. But yeah, not much to discuss on HYPE. Mostly the same idea that we discussed for ETH before, where we had strong impulse. We wanted to see the trend catch up with what was a previous high / resistance and see it flip support. So far, so good, we should say. But again, I can't say that I've been particularly adding to this position, so I'm not gonna spend that much time in it. But could be in a world where we have ETH Bitcoin chop fest for some time. If you remember at the beginning of the stream, I said that the main goal would be to look for potential isolated trends within shitcoins. I could be one of those. It has already pumped quite immensely, obviously, but that could be the main focus. Actually, the main chart I have, the main read I have on HYPE is on my Bybit chart, and it's mostly just a daily trend following approach. And it's actually a very, very good example of the system itself. I'm going to explain a little bit why. Daily downtrend, very well respected. We break through daily downtrend, reclaim H4200 EMA, come for the retest, defend it. We fill the gap to 100 EMA. It acts at resistance. We defend daily trend again, and it's basically been the same daily trend since 13-14. And if you remember the Tron chart that I shared earlier, and I said that the game plan was long every weekly 32 EMA retest until it doesn't work. Well, on HYPE, it's pretty much same thing, but with daily trend. And it's been very clean. It's been very clean in terms of defense of the daily trend. And actually, you can see how strong the trend has been by 13 EMA, so the lowest EMA in the trend being respected. Obviously, it's just math, but if 32 EMA is defended and we don't retest 32 EMA, you are in a strong trend. You are in a clearly defined strong trend. And yeah, pretty clean. Pretty clean. For example, right now, a cool thing to see could be some more price discovery. I don't know, but daily trend catch up with this level, and eventually we get a retest of this region. That would mean that we have daily trend plus previous key horizontal level that you would want to see flip support, like this retest with this region, plus daily trend, and ideally daily stock reset, for example. I'm not saying that's what we're gonna get, but if we had to have a plan from here, this could be it. So I'm gonna update the chart a little bit because the daily trend is here now. Daily 32 EMA is this region. All right. Okay. Let's move on to chat requests. I'm gonna start with Aave, considering that it's been one of my focus as I discussed at the beginning of the stream. I'm gonna add ENI if you want, Cricket Room. But before we go into chat request, let me grab a little bit of water and then I'm back. And Fatcoin, of course. The list for now is ENI, Uni, Aave, Fatcoin, XRP, XLM, and the cursed coin Curve. Water, what about some wine? It's 5 p.m. Maybe tonight, but it's 5 p.m. I'm in wedding duty this weekend. I'm gonna be drinking just enough wine not to do so today. But yeah, usually red day means red wine, but not today. Not today. Before we go into chat requests, maybe a quick look at SPX Ponzi. I really hope that my fractal doesn't play out on SPX. This is just the fractal from last year, from 2022, sorry. Invalidation, obviously, if we start blasting through all-time high and defend daily trend. This goes without saying. Worst case scenario. But yeah, I hope the boomers keep the Ponzi going. All right, so Aave, as I said, to me, Aave is a coin you trade mostly on daily. It's something that I tried a lot in the past to trade on anything below daily time frame, and I've got wrecked trying to do so. It's just, it doesn't tend to respect H4 trend that much, but it's often very clean in daily trends. And it has most of the time delivered some fantastic daily trends. We all remember the one from 2020, post land to Aave rebranding, basically a single daily trend all the way up to 400. Whether it's to the downside or the upside, it has historically respected daily trend much better. And when we look at this, if we remember what I discussed before in terms of when I'm riding a trend, what I want to see in terms of for continuation, combination of a previous resistance flip support that we can use as our main key horizontal level, trend catching up with it, both of them respected, defended if retested, while daily stock reset. If we take this into consideration, just without even doing any kind of technical analysis, you can see it in the chart. You can see this consolidation that gives us an overall horizontal level that you want to see flip support, and you have the daily trend that's been respected since 150, so that's a ×2 already for that daily trend, catching up with price. So without adding any kind of imaginary lines on the chart, there are already quite enough. We can already tell that we are going to likely want to see the 2.60 up to 2.280 region retested if/when retested. And this is basically the idea. So we have indeed a key horizontal level that's fairly obvious watching the charts. Consolidation, defense, breakdown, flip resistance, acting as resistance over the past month or so. And we have the daily trend catching up with it. So just like I said for ETH, my main idea when it comes to Aave is if I get a retest of this region and the confluence of daily trend plus horizontal level plus daily stock resetting, for example, I'm going to be beating it. I don't know if it's going to be this exact setup. That's not a definitive setup, but it's a setup I would be willing to go for with, in my opinion, a very good invalidation. Why do I have the conditions of horizontal level plus trend defended? Simply because in a bullish environment, you want to see previous resistance flip support. I guess that's the 101 to anyone trading using technical analysis and horizontal levels. Combined with daily trend that's been defended with the lows, if we have a price action that does not respect this horizontal level plus loses the daily trend, it's enough weakness indicators to consider that you're wrong and maybe it's just a fake out. Maybe it comes back above the trend and you have to enter a second time. But if it's not the case and it actually flips and lose the resistance, you want to avoid the rest of the drawdown. So that's why I like this kind of setups, mostly because of the clarity of the invalidation. And one of the main reasons behind that is because for years and historically, one of the main issue I had, and I guess it also comes down to my natural bulltard nature and BAs, I used to not respect or not trust my invalidation enough. And I used to always find an excuse not to respect the invalidation, such as, oh, but look, it just printed a wick. Maybe that was it. Maybe it's the liquidity play and we bounce from here. Or I don't know, any kind of excuses. While just by journaling things a bit, I realized over time that my invalidations tend to be most often are not were a good invalidation. And so yeah, that was one of the main things I had to work at some point in my trading journey. And I've come to the fact with those kind of setups where I have the combination of two very simple things to focus on, just a couple of imaginary lines for the trend and a simple horizontal level. If the combination of both are not defended, just shut your brains off. And again, maybe it's a fake out. If that's the case, nothing forbids you from re-entering. And if it's not, then you can be happy about it. Talking about that, we have a small new aside at the beginning of the stream that we should keep an eye on the news feed today with the Middle East situation. And we can see that we've had a news saying that Israel is considering military actions against Iran in the coming days. Is it yet another case of we announced it publicly, so nothing is going to happen? Or are these retards actually going to bomb each other? I don't know. But yeah, same problem, soft invalidation get replaced with new invalidation and compounding position bigger becomes very stressful. 100% GDP. And you end up doing so, you end up with most often are not subpar entries, you overtrade, and yeah, it's just the worst case scenario. In many cases, that's the worst case scenario. And again, if some people in the chat have systems that are considered complex to many, listening to me, sorry, might sound absurdly simple, the way I see the market and approach it. But again, I'm a mid-curve trader. I'm not one of those talented traders like Loma, like Lexus, like all of those guys. I'm a hard grinder, hard trier, mid-curve trader. So if I don't keep things simple, on a long enough period of time, I'm just getting fucked, and I'm sabotaging myself basically. So okay, that's for hype. And obviously, as you can see written on the chart, and as I said for ETH, if the daily trend retest for entry compounding doesn't come, or if the move accelerates, I will flip back to H4 and try to ride the H4 trend that's unfolding, knowing that historically trading ETH Aave on H4 has not rewarded me much. So I would prefer to keep my focus to the daily. I already have some exposure to Aave. It's more from the daily trend retest, but I did not share it publicly anywhere, so I would rather not have the position appear on my chart. I try to, maybe it's my pay group leader nature, but if I have exposure to something that I did not share publicly, I try not to share it too much in my charts. Yeah, mostly my main idea. Okay, could you please look at XMR weekly and daily? Yeah, with pleasure, 5-0, with pleasure. One of those bags that I just never trade. I just let it develop. I don't even know if I have a chat for it somewhere. I think I had, but I would not be surprised if it's been delisted to where I was charting it. Maybe it was on Coinex. Okay. Yeah, XMR to me is one of those bags that I don't trade, but own. Mostly because I believe it's the last true cryptocurrency that exists. but that's just my brain dead. It's just my brain dead low skill fundamental analysis take, I would assume. So yeah, it's not something that I particularly trade. I never got much of a reason to do so when it was ranging that much. But I guess if we just apply the same thought process for XMR than we discussed for AVE and hype and all of those things, we can immediately spot an horizontal level that we blasted through it over the last few weeks that we want to see flip support. Ideally, what we would want to see would be weekly trend catch up with this level and this region flip support, just like everything that we discussed. If you're actively trading XMR, I think you want to see that 2.8 300 level flip support. I'm not saying that if we lose it, we get back to the 180 200, but in terms of weekly trend, I guess that's the place you would want to see some strength, and you would want to see some bidding basically. Extremely similar to what we did in April. However, it was an infinitely cleaner horizontal level, obviously. This was as clean as it can be, obviously. Resistance for 2 years almost, I think. Yeah, 2 years. We blast through it, retest it alongside the weekly trend. Both are defended with weekly stock reset. That's the kind of development we would want to see from here, from XMR if you're trading it. Let's take a look at the daily. I'm gonna go on another chart. Bitcoin, maybe, no, it doesn't have enough history. Maybe if I go, I don't know. Yeah, Bitstamp doesn't have the chart anymore. XMR is not going to have much price history neither. I mean, for the daily time frame, it's not that important, but that's fucking wild that Poloniex has the price history since 2015. This shit was trading at 0.60, Jesus. So yeah, the daily time frame. Harder read on the daily. My main view when it comes to XMR and why I said that it was a bag I own but don't trade, it's mostly because it's very wiki and also in most places fairly liquid. And I mean, just look at this chart. So maybe it's just the Poloniex chart that's very wiki, because Poloniex tends to be very wiki. If we go, it's less wiki, but it's the same story. A less easier read for me here, 5-0. We don't have a clean defense of the daily trends. We could have a H4 EMA compression. If you remember what we discussed for Bitcoin at the beginning of the stream, what was the initial plan when we, last week, trend breaks, we lose 100 MA, we assume a EMA compression with 300 MA as must hold, 100 MA as must break. We've had a very extremely clean H4 trend on XMR from 215 to 400. So this could be the view if you're actively trading. If you're actively trading XMR, I don't have a particular read on the daily because the daily time frame is not very clean to me. But on H4, we have the potential for a H4 EMA compression, which would basically be H4 300 MA must hold. We have the confluence with these previous lows, and H4 100 MA as must break. And basically, so if you remember, for this one, H4 100 MA must break, H4 200 MA likely less relevant as flattening. We can see that it's the exact same structure here, where we have H4 100 MA that needs to be reclaimed, and if that's the case, I would assume that the daily trend is saved. H4 300 MA lower that we want to see defended, and in the middle we have 200 MA that's perfectly flat. So basically, maybe something like this with some deviations above and below, and you wait for the compression to tighten and end basically. If we break to the downside with a H4 trend defended, that's your weakness confirmation and you aim for lower. If we break to the upside with H4 trend defended, that's your confirmation of new trends and exit of the compression incoming. So I don't have a clear read for you, Fivo, on the daily, but on H4 I would focus on this potential structure. But again, for me, XMR is something I don't actively trade. One close under the trend means trend rejected for you. As I said at the beginning of the stream, when I'm focused on the trend and I want to know if it's lost or not, I'm gonna have two conditions: close below the trend itself plus the 200 EMA on the -1 time frame lost. For example, here it's the H4 time frame. Here we had first close below the trend. That's a potential first weakness. We had another close over here. To decide that the trend is definitely lost, I would have went to the H1 to watch the 200 EMA, and we can see that we have indeed 100, 200 EMA lost flip resistance. Two confirmations that the trend is lost. If we get back to this close below the trend, that was on Sunday, 4th of May 4th, for the burgers in the chat. We closed below the trend. You want to know if it's lost or not, you go on H1, you check H1 200 EMA. May 4th, we can see Picori test of the 200 EMA, enough to consider that it might be a deviation. It's not a perfect rule. It's gonna have some fake outs, obviously, but I believe it's a fairly good way to know, to have a, before the candle closes, or if you're looking for more confirmation, it can be a good confirmation that the trend is lost or not. And obviously this applies to any time frame. If you're looking at the daily trend, you're gonna want to see if the H4 200 EMA is defended. If you're looking at H4 trend, you want to see if H1 200 EMA is defended, etc., etc., etc. So close below plus 200 EMA on the time frame -1, not defended anymore, enough to consider the trend is lost. Depending on your positioning, this can be enough to close fully and or consider that as a take profit region. For example, on the Bitcoin swing long that we've been riding from the end of last year, when I got the daily trend loss plus H4 200 EMA loss that I discussed earlier, that was a trigger for me to take more profits. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect rules. It doesn't have to be perfectly respected. It's just imaginary lines on the chart. It's gonna have fake outs. Just historically, it's a set of rules that has helped me navigating the way the trend behaves. Instructions very clear. Awesome. If you don't have any question, that means that my broken English is explaining things pretty nicely. Okay. Oh, I can see that we also have Trump speaking about Powell in the news. Okay, interesting. That's going to be very interesting through the day to see how the market reacts to the Middle East news and all of that. All right. Let's move on to the next chat request. But first, I'm going to get a little bit more water if you allow me to do so. It's been 1 hour of stream, but yeah, we're going to keep streaming as long as you guys have chat requests. Ton, okay, I will do ton 2. And yeah, we will keep the stream going as long as the chat requests are coming. But until then, give me a minute so I can get more water and we will continue the stream. Here are the chat requests that we still have to do. We still have ENA, Uni, Fatcoin, XRP, XLM, Curve, Ton. Broken English, very clean for my French face boss. Yeah, nice. Baguette for the win. All right, I'm coming back in 1 minute. All right, I'm back. Okay, so next one. Let's do Uni, which is kind of just like Curve. It's kind of in my blacklist of things that I've been hurt before trying to trade. I know that Krillin likes trading Uni. Maybe I can find his plan on Uni somewhere. But I'm not quite sure where he shared it. Let me see if I can find it or not, but hello Stein, how are you, mate? I hope you're having a good day. I cannot find Krillin Uni chart, but I know that Krillin has been trading Uni, and he tends to like it. We actually have a fairly good example of what I said earlier. When you have incapacity to defend trend after a deviation, strong trend, lost, reclaimed, lost again. Enough of a disrespect of the trend to decide that the trend is not respected anymore and move on to something else. If you have a trend indicator, it's by definition it should be just as good to highlight trend than the lack of it. I failed my exam by 1 out of 10. Resit is Tuesday. If you failed it by 1 out of 10, it means that it's a marginal error and that you're gonna slay it on Tuesday. 100% confident that you're gonna get it, mate. Shit happens, but you got that. All right, so Uni, who asked for Uni? Who is putting me in those conditions where I have to watch these charts, this cursed chart? Who asked for it? Michelangelo, you must hate me for making me look at this chart. So main thing is I'm seeing when I'm looking at this chart is that I cannot focus on H4 that much. We can see that H4 trend has not particularly been well respected. It's been pretty chaotic. It's the first retest of H4 13 EMA, so far it's failing to defend it. Probably don't want to focus on H4. On H1, we could have an argument for a potential gap fill setup if H1 trend is not reclaimed. If it's flip resistance, we could very well see a move down to H4, H1 100 MA. Not particularly something I would be interested to trade, but it's something that we could watch. Extremely unlikely that I want to position myself on something like this for Uni, but it's worth noting that since the impulse at 6.3, it's the first time that the H1 trend is not defended anymore. So H1 and H4 are not some things that I want to trade. That means I need to zoom out and if I have any plans, make it off of the daily, which tends to be more respected, as we can see with that daily downtrend from the beginning of the year, from 13 all the way down to 5.4. We have a deviation here. Let's see if it was denied by H4 200 EMA. As we discussed before, I have no idea, but as we discussed before, when I want to decide if a trend is lost or reclaimed, we watch a close below or above plus 200 EMA. That's the daily trend. So we're gonna go and check the H4 200 EMA. That was on April 23. Okay, so that was this fight with H4 200 EMA. We can see that we closed above, fucked around, immediately failed to flip it. Enough to consider this as an invalidation. These kind of moves are why I don't trade Uni. I'm never rapid enough to react and catch those kind of things. Okay, enough trashing Uni. Any thoughts on ING? I'm gonna add ING to the list. My former favorite shitcoin to trade. No, it's fine, Michelangelo. I'm kidding. You can ask any chat request you want. Okay, so let's map out some things of interest. We have H4, we have daily 300 MA here that coincidentally ended up being a Pico local top. So let's map it out as a must break and confluence with this high. And if we look back to the left, we can immediately realize that it's not a random level. We have some confluence. If we go all the way back to 2024, it's been a clean horizontal level, a level to fight for multiple times for uni. So it's likely to be an interesting level to fight for, and it has the confluence of daily 300 MA. So from here, if uni starts to spend some time above the $8.69 region, likely to expect some continuation from uni. It's a pretty clean horizontal level, so that's a good one to work with, especially with the confluence of daily 300 MA. So if we were to break through these highs, the next gap fill we would be watching would be this one all the way up to $10. The next one would be here. And I believe these are targets you would want to front run in case we don't go for the perfect retest. We have a wide distance between the price and the trend. We cannot say yet if we have a daily trend to work with, but I would not be surprised if we had some sort of consolidation but around this level while the daily trend catches up with price. And eventually, if we have daily trend doing like this, plus the confluence of daily 200 EMA and this horizontal level, a less clean horizontal level. I guess this would be a more fitting horizontal level, but it's pretty wide. But yeah, basically this region. If we have daily 200 EMA, which is still flat, but if we have the confluence of daily trend plus daily trend defended, I think we have a very good case for continuation. At the opposite, if uni starts to trade back below the $7 region, $7.37 region, I would assume that it comes back for daily 100 EMA and consolidates for longer. So that's a lot of lines, but let's summarize things. Ideally, we want to see the daily trend catching up with price. Currently still in the 6.47 region. Let's put some a daily trend X daily 200 EMA X previous highs confluence retests could be an interesting entry setup. Daily 300 MA X, the level is 8.5 all the way up to $9. Let's say it that way, 8.5, 9.4. The horizontal level is the must break from here to fill next gaps. I'm gonna set some alerts above the highs that we printed on Monday. I'm gonna set some alerts in this region, but it's extremely unlikely that I trade uni. If I want to trade uni, that means I'm interested in ETH ecosystem. If that's the case, it's extremely likely that I prefer to trade. It's extremely likely that I prefer to trade Aave, but we never know. In any case, personally, in my system, I would only focus on the daily time frame, Michelangelo, because the H4 is pretty chaotic. And especially considering the nature of uni, which tends to be pretty trappy shitcoin. So I think you can let it develop here a little bit. If it consolidates while the daily trend catches up, you have an argument to try for a long. If it doesn't spend that much time consolidating, but it manages to break through recent highs and daily 300 MA, you have an argument to play things more aggressively. Okay, let's keep the ETH basket, and let's take a look at ENA. Yeah, kind of also in the. So that I can't remember when I charted that. Pierre, we are nuking on the 1 minute. Are we though? You guys need to get out of the lower time frame, man. But yeah, we have been rejected by what I shared earlier as must reclaim, as we can see. And that means that we should be watching this orange box. But yeah, heavily news-driven market today. We have Trump speaking. We have Middle East trying to bomb themselves. Okay. Yeah, I tried to long that yesterday. I got stopped out. I was really interested to long that EMMA compression, particularly because we had some Bitcoin and ETH strength, and then we got the news from Israel and all of that. It is how it is. Ads are getting destroyed on lower time frame. Probably. It's a key fight. It's a key day, but yeah. Zoom out a little bit. Most often they are not, unless you are very good intraday and lower time frame scalper. You have no business to do in anything below H4. Most of the time. Again, I don't want to assume your trading skills, but most of the time, trying not to spend too much time on lower time frame is gonna be better for you. Yeah, no. I can't remember when I charted that, but I still agree with it. It's not a coin that I'm interested to trade. I think it's a coin that might have some very interesting fundamental analysis, and maybe it's gonna be a coin that's get pushed by VCs and all of that eventually. But it's been extremely disappointing trending and trading wise. Basically, ever since it broke that daily downtrend in April, it had a very sexy daily downtrend since 0.96 all the way down to 0.30. And to me, when a shitcoin breaks a multi-month daily downtrend and cannot even fill the gaps all the way up to daily 200 EMA, it's usually a coin I know that doesn't have the traction I'm willing to trade. But with that being said, I don't have much to add to these charts. You have these lows that were printed and we tested a few times that you obviously and ideally want to see defended. Daily 100 EMA doesn't seem to be respected particularly. Unless we have some news coming that can help ENA, I think it's not too crazy to expect this kind of price action. So I'm not gonna spend that much more time on this one. It's basically, and you're gonna notice that when I open a chart, I either see a setup instantly or I don't. And I just don't see a setup over here. You could have an argument, I guess, to try to go for a long within the retest of the lows printed, but it's not the kind of setup I'm interested to trade. In a market that's already hard enough to trade, I would much rather try to chase and find places where we have some established trends than try to pray for a bottom to form, basically. I'm very much fine missing bottoms and tops as long as I manage to ride the trend that's unfolding after that. Did you check CRV? Not yet, Titwan. Not yet. You know what? I'm going to do it now so that after that we are done with the ETH ecosystem. But give me a minute first. Up. Okay, so Curve, the ultimate cursed coin in my book. I do not remember drawing that, but I guess it's been fairly well respected. Let me remove some drawings. Yeah, I guess I can just you have a daily EMA compression over here with the confidence of daily 200 EMA, 100 EMA, 300 EMA that you want to see defended. It's a bit like ENA that I just shared. I don't see an obvious setup when I'm watching this chart, and it's not something that I'm particularly interested to trade on anything below daily time frame. It's a very chaotic one. You can see that the H4 trend is very rarely respected. So most of the time when I see that, I just don't want to be active on that. My main point of view is if you're bullish on curve, you don't want to see 0.50 up to 0.60 lost. But you don't have a daily trend to work with anymore. Daily trend, lost, reclaimed, lost again. As we discussed at the beginning of the stream, if you start seeing that, your main conclusion should be, or your main expectation should be chop fest. Which would be good for curve to have a tighter compression on daily EMA. But yeah, basically, I think you want to see these defended. So maybe if you're really aggressive, you could have an argument for a play like this, for example. But yeah, I really dislike trading curve. But maybe something like this. I guess my main conclusion watching this chart would be that a daily close below 0.50 is likely 55, sorry, is likely a strong weakness indicator. Okay, sorry, Titwan, that I don't have something more actionable to trade, but to share. But I would say that by the way the daily trend is disrespected, I would say your main focus should be on this region, the 0.62 down to 655, as a place you want to see defended. SPX is still doing fine. Bitcoin back at H1 200 EMA. It's a big test. Curve more like curse. Yeah, kind of. Again, it's just my BAs on it because I find it, back in the days, I used to find it shit to trade. And I guess you can see it pretty well with the way it doesn't even respect daily trend, like over here in 2021. You have a fairly trend, but it keeps losing it, reclaiming it, losing it. In a world where we have thousands of shitcoin to trade, I would much rather go for something that seems cleaner to me at least. But yeah, if I had any point of view on curve, it would be basically this wide range of 0.60 up to 0.80. It's a very wide range indeed. It's 25, 30%. But yeah. Grass. Okay, it's the last chat request I take because it's gonna be 2 hours of stream eventually, and at some point my brain just fries. Let's do a quick news check, and then we're gonna do ton now. Sorry, my mic disconnected for a minute. Okay. Last part of the stream, main focus on ETH, the alpha more or less. To me, it is as long as we have the ETH BTC above daily trend and Bitcoin above daily trend. These are the two main conditions for me to remain focused on ETH. And as I said at the beginning of the stream, personally, Aave is the main beta I'm trading when it comes to Ethereum. And if I had a tip to give, is that don't disperse yourself too much trying to trade multiple betas. In the first place, try to have a good read and a good exposure to the leading one. So ETH in that case. And if you have a good exposure, if you have a good positioning, plus I feel like you have a good read on ETH, then you can try, in my opinion, indeed, to try and find some outperforming betas. But trading leading and beta is not as easy as it can be, as it can seem, or as people can sell or whatever. It's a correct balance to try and find. Do we have more price action on this somewhere? Maybe on Coinex? Okay. Oh yeah, okay. I remember sharing this. Oh no, you forgot ton. No, I'm doing ton, mate. I'm doing ton. No, I'm not cutting the stream now. I'm gonna finish the chat request that I shared, that I said I would cover, but I'm not taking new ones because we still have 6 chat requests to do, and my brain is already broken, and the market is moving a little bit. So if I want to try and do some things for the end of the day, I might need to shut the stream off. So let's speedrun things a little bit. If you remember what I said for ENA, I said that whenever I have an asset that breaks a long time daily downtrend and it fails to flip gaps to daily 200 EMA or whatever, it's usually a shitcoin I don't want to be focused on. And I basically still stand to what I said last time I covered ton. The last time I covered ton, basically I said that we could be willing to see a daily 100 MA to daily trend to daily 100 MA gap fill and eventually daily 200 MA, but could be tricky because daily trend has not been very well respected. And indeed, daily trend is just flat, not respected. You can see it here. We are below daily trend, above daily trend, below daily trend, perfectly flat. So what do I see? What would I be willing to trade on something like this? So not on H4. A strong indicator for me that I don't have any business on a time frame is when you have all the moving averages flat and at the same region. I have no work to do here. If all the moving averages are flat, that just basically means that yeah, no trend to trade and no trend to work with. So I'm not gonna be focused on that. So that's not gonna be, if we trade ton, that's not gonna be off of the H4 charts. That's gonna be off of something else. The daily is pretty shitty too, because daily trend is respected. I still think it could see a gap fill to daily 200 EMA, but the longer it takes to get there, the lower daily 200 EMA is gonna be. Basically, the longer we consolidate here, the lower daily 200 EMA is gonna be, the smaller the gap is gonna be, the less interesting it's gonna become to trade. Didn't Ton had or Telegram at least, had a news about some sort of partnership with X, or was that confirmed to be false? If that's the case, that's pretty disappointed to see that Ton couldn't do more than that. I would assume that was this daily candle. I would assume that was that daily candle. Okay, I cannot find the news anymore, but okay. Yeah, Titwan, I'm struggling. Oh no, sorry, Oscar Ishu. I'm struggling to find a setup to discuss. I think we can see a fairly clean range over here that you could be willing to work with. But until we have a daily trend that's defended, it's complicated for me to share a setup, because I would not be surprised that unless some sort of news impacting Ton or Bitcoin or ETH shitting the bed, I would not be surprised if we have this kind of price action from Ton. As long as it doesn't have a defended daily trend, I don't see a setup. So yeah, I don't have something to share with you, Oscar Issue, beside maybe that my main conclusion when I'm watching something like this is that unless there is a news impacting the chart, it's not something that I'm willing to trade. It's trendless on daily and trendless on H4, so I basically have zero business to trade it as someone that's focused on trends. So yeah, sorry mate, but maybe it's already a good enough conclusion for you. Okay, let's do our beloved Fatcoin. But again, what you can do, Skyshoe, when you have a chart like this, is possibly set some alerts above some highs that were printed through the week, like 3.4 or something like this. That could be the trigger that leads to the daily 200 mega fill. And you could have a plan of that, basically. When I don't see an obvious setup on something that I'm charting, I try, if I know that it's something that I could be interested to trade eventually, I just set some alerts at extremes and places that I consider as places you want to see flipped / broken, and I eventually come back to it. Basically, try not to overthink the chart if you don't see something obvious, and set some alerts and come back to it later. So our beloved Fatcoin. Okay. All right, sorry. My mic died. My mic died. I don't know why. But yeah, mic died. Fuck. So I don't know since when it lost, but basically I was saying that the same way we don't want to see ETH losing that EMAMA structure, which could be seen as a strong signal of chop vesting coming and daily trend not respected. I think it's the same story on Fatcoin with the 105 up to 115 region, 120 region, where we have entire set of moving averages plus daily trends. If that was to be lost, I would see it as a signal that we're gonna chop vest for longer. So if there is a setup, I don't know if you hear that before or not, but I was saying that this is not a definitive setup. That I don't know if I want to beat that or if I want to play aggressive lower. But I would consider a retest of the low $1 region as a must hold and would likely give it a shot if slash when retested. If that's not retested, it means that Fatcoin started a new H4 trend. And in that case, I will adjust my game plan and try to play the H4 trend continuation. So my main plan when it comes to Fatcoin right now is wait to see if it defends H4 trend here. And if it does, I'm going to be focused on riding H4 trend, or at least try to use H4 trend retests for entries. And if it doesn't defend H4 trend, I'm going to get myself ready for potential retests of the low $1 region. And you probably noticed that it's basically the same thought process than for the Bitcoin discussion, where until H4 trend is reclaimed, I'm getting myself ready to see this region retested. It was also pretty much the same thought process for ETH. Basically, these are the first H4 trend retest we've had ever since the impulse from this weekend and early week. So it's the moment where we see if we can focus on those H4 trends or if we need to have a different approach. So for now, this is my main overall plan for Fatcoin. I'm gonna write it down. Wait to see if H4 trend defended. If that's the case, use H4 trend retests for entries. If that's not the case, 1.05 up to 120 is the must hold slash area to defend for Fatcoin to have a new daily trend, basically. Okay, so if you remember, alerts at places that I would consider crucial for Fatcoin to defend, and I'm gonna set an alert to the upside because I believe that if Fatcoin starts trading above 140 again, it likely means that it defended H4 trend, and that means that I would have to adapt my approach. But yeah, Fatcoin is on top of my list of things that I've been trading lately. I deleted the previous trades because the chart was extremely messy. But it's been one of the things I traded the most with Aave and ETH and hype over the past few weeks. I mean, obviously, isn't it? Good morning. Can you do Pepe and Mog? Sorry, mate. I just did 2 hour stream and a lot of chat requests, and I still have more. I still have 4 to do. So I'm unlikely to take new chat requests. I'm sorry, mate. My brain is my brain is fried a little bit. So yeah, sorry. I'm not taking new chat requests. But just by memory, if I'm not mistaken, Pepe is fighting with H4 EMAMA. Yeah. So if you remember what I said about EMAMA compressions, fuck, you can see that my brain is starting to melt. I would assume that this is the place you want to see defended for Pepe with potential deviations. As a ETH beta, the main idea for Pepe is likely that if Ethereum manages to defend H4 trend and the market doesn't shit the bed further off of Middle East news or whatever, well, in that case, you can have a good argument. I used to trade Pepe as a ETH beta a lot, but I stopped. I stopped doing so. I know Krillin likes to do it a lot, but I personally stopped doing so. Mostly, as I discussed through the stream, because I like Ave more, and because I tend to think that it's a better fit for me in my system. I feel like it trades in a way that I'm feeling more comfortable trading compared to Pepe. And also because, as I said through the stream, when I trade a leader and it's beta, I try not to go with multiple betas. I try to stick to one and trade it as well as I can before thinking about riding multiple ones. So yeah, that's H4 EMA compression, Timothy for Pepe, and Abderrahman. Sorry, mate. But today, really, the fight you should be watching the most is clearly Bitcoin fight with the H4 trend that needs to be reclaimed, and this overall region that you want to see defended, the 104, 106. If yeah, I don't know that. A weekend acceleration when the market is more illiquid. I can feel that coming, unfortunately. All right. Hello, Akbar. You're joining the stream a little bit late, but you have the replay if you want. We mostly discussed Bitcoin and ETH during the first 45 minutes of the stream, discussing what are the main focuses and things to watch, and ever since we've been doing chat requests. Next one, let's do Grass, particularly because it's one that I've really enjoyed trading lately. We've got a very sexy exit that I haven't touched since. That was some pretty sexy trading. H1 200 EMA entry. Again, if you remember what we discussed through the stream, there is a trend unfolding. We have a deviation below the trend. We go into the -1 time frame to see if the 200 EMA is defended or not. In that case, we were hovering around H1 200 EMA, which was enough to give it a shot, and then compounding on the reclaim of 100 EMA plus trends, and then you ride until the trend starts to break. With that being said, enough self-sucking. Okay, so obviously I don't see much to work with watching this H4 charts, EMA wise at least. Let's take a look at the daily. The daily is just not better than that. I remember opening this chart yesterday and telling myself that it's not something I want to trade, and unfortunately it's a little bit of the same feeling today. Maybe we can say on lower time frame that you want to see these lows defended from last week price action, and any retest of this region is if you're scalping long from here, you want to take profit if we retest this region. But beside that, I don't have any kind of reads. On Grass short term, unfortunately. Who asked for Grass? Cola. Unfortunately, I don't see an obvious setup to take on any time frames that I'm watching. It's not something that I want to trade, but maybe the main conclusion you can have watching this chart is that likely the 165 up to 170 is a region that needs to be defended. if you're long on that, or if you're longing that lows, that's a purely horizontal level play. But if you add some moving averages, I would say that if you're longing that, you want to take your profits on a retest of the 185 up to 195 region. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't see a clear setup to discuss over here. It was very interesting to trade within a trendy behavior, obviously, but ever since it's been very chaotic. Have you covered hype? Yes. CRV? Yes. ING? I'm going to do so. OP and FED? No. And unfortunately, as I said, it's been 2 hours streaming. I'm not going to take new chart requests. I still have ING, XRP, and XLM to do. We did that today. And again, at the end of the stream, I will be sharing all of those charts in the Telegram channel. I'm putting the link in the chat. If you want to have access to the charts, don't hesitate to join. Okay, next one. Jesus, I'm exhausted. Okay, we're gonna do ING. It's a coin I traded a lot in 2022, 2023. Do I still have the chart where I have all my setups from back in the day or not? I don't know if I still have the charts with all the trades. Doesn't seem to be like it, unfortunately. Ah, yes, they are here. This was our ING trading in the Haven at the end of 2023, sorry. That's one of the latest trades I tried to take and I got wrecked on it. But yeah, it's a good display of the system. It's a good display of the system. We start defending the trend. We break through a key resistance. You long the confluence of it. And then we compounded on H4 trend retest over here. Again over here. The trend starts to break. And I would assume that it was alongside an H1 200 EMA loss. It's a signal to get out. And then we wait for compression and we enter into the new defended daily trend all the way up, daily trend, H4 trend until it starts to break again. That was fantastic. That was fantastic. And then after that, we can see that I tried 2 more trades that were unsuccessful. And then I stopped touching it for quite some time until 2024. It's just nice trades. We had a lot of fun trading this a couple of years ago. Is there a reason why you're using specific moving averages in combination with the moving EMA? Historically moving averages, that tends to be respected. I would assume it's ones that anyone using moving averages have on their charts, whether it's the 100 MA, 200 MA, 300 MA. It's the main reason. It's the main reason. Over time, I found those ones to be particularly well respected. Again, I'm using them mostly as targets when playing gap fills, like daily downtrend breaks, flip support. We aim for 100 MA as a first target. We retest one of the trend, it's defended. We aim for 200 MA as target. I'm mostly using them for that, and or to time when the previous trend is reset when we have a compression. I don't use them for crosses and things like this, like some people can do. And yeah, historically, because well respected. And as for the trend, simply because it's a short-term moving average. And 1030 EMA is the default settings of exchanges platform charting tools. When you set EMAs as indicator on Binance or whatever, most of the time it's 10 to 30 EMA, and therefore it's things that are particularly watched. Okay, so ING, fill the 2 gaps. Let's map out the main moving averages. It's been a long time I didn't watch ING. I used to trade this one a lot, as you've seen in the setups that we discussed, and I basically never looked back. I think we tried a couple of the trades ever since, but yeah, not much. Okay, so my main read on ING short term is that you want to see daily trend defended. Again, it's the exact same argument that we discussed through the stream. If it's not defended, that means that you have daily trend lost, reclaimed, lost again, meaning that your main conclusion should be chop fast on this time frame and potential daily 100 may retest lower. So short term, if you're expecting momentum and trend continuation from ING, you want to see trend defended plus daily 200 EMA broken. And if that's the case, we have an opportunity to fill the gap to the highs printed in February in confluence with that low. That's the breakdown level, that's the resistance, and could be in confluence with daily 300 MA as the next gap eventually. You know what? I'm gonna set some alerts at daily 100 MA and above daily at daily 100 MA and above daily 200 MA. If I'm willing to trade ING, it's probably only in those two regions, whether it's above or below. So yeah, that sucks because we haven't found a lot of actionable setup today. I was hoping that we could see some setup that we could trigger together so that we can get back to it eventually. I guess we could have an argument for a AVE long if it manages to reclaim H1 trend over here. You could have an argument for something like this, for example, but it's going against my rules. If you remember what I said that I like to trade AVE, but I have a rules of not trading it beside daily. And what I'm doing right now is typical too much time spent on the chart, and I'm inventing setups to myself instead of sticking to the plan, which is why I think that for a vast majority of people, avoiding spending too much time on lower time frame is a good thing. I already have good exposure to AVE. If I was to take something like this, it would purely be driven by the addiction to be in a setup. clearly, clearly that would be that. I need to I need to hold me back. I need to hold me back. What's a trigger when losing a moving average to cut a trade? So we discussed that extensively through the stream, Akbar. A lot of times with a lot of examples, but I'm going to say it one last time. So when I'm riding a trend, for me to consider the trend to be lost, there is going to be two main indicators, two main conditions. The first one is going to be a close below the trend, obviously. And I'm gonna watch the 200 EMA on the time frame -1. If I'm riding the daily trend and we start spending some time below the trend, I'm gonna go and watch if H4 200 EMA is defended or not. If we have close below the trend plus 200 EMA not defended, I consider this enough of weakness to consider the trend to be lost. And you can apply that with H4 trend and you watch H1 200 EMA, etc., etc. If you have some time, you can try to browse the. No, it's okay, mate. I don't mind repeating. Repeating things is part of my job, so I'm fine with it. If you want to see more examples, maybe you can browse the stream. It's a long stream. We've been streaming for 2 hours, but uh, I shared and discussed a lot of examples highlighting that. And again, it's not a perfect rule. As I always say, it's only imaginary lines on the chart, but it can help. It can help. Just never forget it's just imaginary lines. Okay. Let's do XRP. I don't have much to add on this chart. Let's take a look at the daily. Oh, it is already daily. It is already daily time frame. Interesting. Interesting. Well, um, I think it could do what I drew over here, especially if Bitcoin was to retest 104, 106, for example. But it's an interesting compression unfolding. It's not yet fully compressed, but yeah, I don't have anything to add to this. My brain is too fried to add anything, but basically that would be my plan. If I was to play anything on XRP, okay, so when I'm watching this, I feel like it's something I could be interested to trade, but I cannot justify positioning myself now. I know that Kina had some bids at the daily 200 MA retest end of last week, if I'm not mistaken. But basically, I cannot justify entering here because my invalidation would be within the compression. It's a shit invalidation. It would be either too tight, either at daily 200 MA. In any case, it would be places I would not be interested. But I feel like you could play a more aggressive approach where you try to bid a daily 300 MA retest region, or you wait, sorry, for a new daily trend to ride, with the main argument to do so being that XRP tends to respect daily trend pretty nicely. We can see it with the recent leg. Defended the daily trend very well. As soon as the daily trend started to break, it's been chopping ever since. And in general, XRP moves with daily trends. I think the XRP play could be a play off of the inevitable Ripple IPO. I don't know when. I don't know if it's going to be a very strong catalyst for Ripple or not, but because it's been the meta lately, seeing some crypto company doing IPOs, maybe we can think of a world where Ripple does an IPO. If that's the case, maybe we have an argument for a XRP daily trend to ride eventually. But in this region, I cannot justify positioning myself. And I guess it's a little bit, it's even cleaner if you watch H4 and you remember what I discussed for the stream. When I open the chart and I see all the moving averages flatten in the same region, that means that there is no trend to ride, there is no momentum. And I would much rather let it develop, wait for a trend to start, and then position myself. I'm gonna give you an example of that with OM from last year before it rugged. You can see why. So for example, this is a trade I got fucked on OM last year. I tried to long. Basically, Ripple could be here right now. It could very well flip the compression and send, as much as it could take more time to consolidate and end up with all moving averages flat and in the same region. If that's the case, I'm fine missing the initial impulse, no matter the direction, and then do my best to ride the trend, compounding on trend retests. So yeah, I feel like it's this way that I'm seeing the daily chart on XRP right now. It's potentially forming a compression on the daily, making it very interesting. But unless you count an initial entry at daily 200 MA, which makes sense, I think at this point you are either waiting for an exit of the recent consolidation with a new daily trend to ride, or you wait for an aggressive positioning in the lower part of the compression. So that's unfortunately another example of something that we don't have an actionable trade to share and discuss. Fucking sucks. I was really hoping for us to find some setups that we could open today. So be it. There is going to be days like this where you need not to force things. Sticking to the same initial plan. Oh, but that's Ondo. I don't know why I'm going to Ondo. Okay, XLM. I haven't watched XLM since the end of last year, obviously. Okay, this is looking interesting. So first of all, we can see the system applying again. Strong daily trend. The daily trend starts to break. Lost, reclaimed, lost again. You have to assume chop vest, and your main conclusion should be to expect chop vest on this time frame. Chop vest indeed. Daily 100 MA retested, initially defended, lost, and we eventually filled the gaps to 300 MA into compression. If you remember what I said, the three components of the system, EMA, MA compression leads to trendy behavior leads to gap fills leads to EMA, MA compression, etc., etc. Strong trend, gap fills, compression. Should we expect some trendy behavior from XLM? What's sure is that it's basically the same chart than XRP, but with a much tighter compression, which could mean it could move first. So if you remember what I said about compression earlier using this example, you either position yourself on the retest of the compression or you wait for the compression to unfold and then you ride the trend. So if we use XLM example right now, well, you either try to position yourself now, knowing that this daily 300 MA retest was likely to be the best one. You give yourself some possibility for deviation, obviously, especially with that low. So that's a possibility. Or you wait for the first impulse or breakdown with a daily trend to ride, and you position yourself in the trend that follows the compression. So I know I'm saying up or down, but basically that would be the plan for me. Giving it the possibility to print deviations. if we apply the EMA compression approach in the system, that's the game plan. That's the generic game plan when we approach EMA compressions. I'm gonna set some alerts. Surprisingly, I have good memories trading XRP, but I have even better memories trading XLM, which is when you think about it, XLM, that's fucking insane. Like Stellar Lumens. When was the last post from XLM Twitter account? Because I know that Jared, I think it's Jared that launched Stellar Lumens. Jed McCaleb. Professional extractor. That's fucking insane, to be honest. Like, he's probably one of the greatest extractor ever. It's fucking insane how much he took away from the XLM community and how much he managed to sell XLM to so many people. It's fucking insane. Stellar Org. When was their last tweet? Oh, not too long ago. May 28th. No, yesterday. I don't know if it's bots or not, but you still have a lot of engagement on their posts. This is the power of the 2018 shitcoins. Like, this is obviously a dead project. Like, you don't know anyone. Okay, apparently PayPal is using Stellar, so I guess there's that. My bad, sorry. But okay, but it's because it's on Stellar. But I would assume it's mostly on Ethereum and Solana. But what I'm trying to say is that it's fucking unreal that something like XLM is still exists. Like it's fucking insane to me. Your EMA compressions are very clear, to be honest. Yeah, Krillin is very good at trading them on lower time frame as well. He is infinitely better than me trading them on lower time frames. And this is why, like the GOAT setup that I shared yesterday, on which I got stopped overnight, was actually, you know what? I have the setup somewhere. I must have that. I must have it in my scalp section. So that was the idea. As you can see, H4 EMMA compression. And my main idea was basically it's a very wide stop, so and it's a meme coin, so you play with very low size. We are aiming for a 40% move to capture. But basically, I just want to show this one as an example that it's very clean, but it doesn't have to be perfectly respected. It's insane when it's respected because you have some fucking great entries like that daily EMA compression retest on Sui. But yeah, it's just imaginary lines. For me, usually when I see the EMA compression not respected, like the OM example I shared with you before, my main assumption is something like this, with moving averages that are going to be flat and disrespected. But yeah, it's a good thing to focus on when you're trying to look for a potential ideal entry and timing. But I have a rule when it comes to EMA compression is that if my setup fails, I am forbidden to touch the asset until a new trend emerges, one side or another. Because the compression is either well respected with some potential deviations, but on that case, that's too wide invalidation deviations. And then we write the trend. Either it means that it's just not going to play out. Hey Pierre, on longer swing trades, what are your strategy around trading your stops? So my two main approach when it comes to riding trends is that I'm going to pay myself in obvious horizontal levels, which are basically previous highs before breakdowns or local highs that were printed. And if/when we are in price discovery, or not necessarily, but if I'm riding the trend, I will trade my stops following the trend. And whenever I have trend lost plus 200 EMA lost, I cut the rest if I want to have a full exit of the position, or I wait for gap fills below, etc., etc. But basically, a simple combination of horizontal levels and the loss of the trend. And it's exactly the same thought process than with the ideal setup that I discussed earlier when I'm looking for the confluence of horizontal plus trend retested to find entries. And the justification for that was to fight a bad habit that I used to have to not respect my invalidations. It's exactly the same thought process for the targets. I try to have my targets as simple and obvious as possible, and most often they're not front run them, because that way I know I'm going to fucking respect them. And most often they're not. They tend to be respected, with 105, 110 to be the latest good example. It's a very obvious horizontal level. It's our main short-term target. If we break through H4 100 MA, we fucking respect it. Time for the question. If you had to be another trader from the Haven, which trader would you like to be? That's a fantastic question. That's a fantastic question, actually. Can I mix? Can I make a mix of Haven traders, or does it have to be one of them? No, just one. Well, I'm not going to say Krillin because we are very alike as traders. At least we have. I could have an answer that could be Krillin because Krillin is me, but with a better execution of the system. So it's basically a better version of me. Um, but I would say Loma. I would say Loma. I have to go for Loma because, as I said through the stream, I'm probably the personification of the tryharder mid curve trader, while Loma is probably the most talented trader I've ever seen in my life, in terms of the capacity to know when to go hard, to manage big positions without sweating, to accept losses and just move on, to compound on your winners, to an overall sense and taste for the market. He's just a very talented trader. Like, I've been trading along his side since 2019, and I've seen him do some absolutely insane stuff in the market, and uh yeah, it has to be Loma, just because of that, because I wish I was more talented. If I was more talented, I would probably have to work as I'm doing to get the same result, if not more. So I would go for Loma. And if I can do a mix, that would be a mix of Loma and Krillin, I would say. But I do think the other traders are goated. Like, Main is absolutely goated. CBS is absolutely goated. CBS is probably one of the best momentum trader that I've seen also in my life. Like, the capacity to go hard without thinking twice, and the timing of positioning and the conviction. If I could do a mix, I would take the talent of Loma, the discipline of Krillin, and the conviction of CBS. That would be my perfect trader. That Pengu trade from CBS was crazy. Yeah, just absolutely insane. Yeah. Yeah, I have some pretty chat traders working alongside me, and I'm extremely fortunate to work with them. I've learned a lot from them. And what do you think is a trait you would add from yourself? Uh, the wine collection. No, more seriously, I would say I would say the sense for shitcoins, but CBS probably has a better sense of shitcoinery than I do. So yeah. Yeah, no, I would say I would say the wine collection for sure. First time on live. Thanks for all the insight, Pierre. Got to bounce. Up to join the next one with pleasure, Akbar. And again, as I said earlier, if you want to watch the replay, it's gonna be available. And maybe I discuss something that could help you understand my system a little bit more. Trump. Trump said something could happen soon in Middle East. There is a chance of massive conflict. Yeah, that's exactly what the market wanted to hear, isn't it? I guess until they strike, the market's going to be probably a little bit choppy. I would not be surprised if we have a 105, 108 chop fest, but I think the discipline to your system plus knowing what your strength and not doing much outside of that. Yeah, I would agree on that. I would agree that I'm probably the trader with the less ego. That's because I've been wrecked enough in the past, and I would assume that that comes in hand with not being as talented as them. But yeah, maybe it's a good take, Stain. All right, lads. Oh fuck, I forgot. Oh no, I did XLM. Okay, so I'm going to shut the stream off. It's been a little bit more than 2 hours. Unfortunately, we haven't found a lot of setups to take immediately, but I guess when you think about the state of the market, it makes perfect sense because we have a situation where we are kinda in the middle of two important places for Bitcoin, as we discussed. If I have to do a short summary before leaving, to me at least, the main two fights when it comes to Bitcoin short term is to reclaim the H4 trend, which has been retested 3 times since lost, as you can see with those wicks, and so far has not been able to reclaim it. I think that a clean reclaim above 108.5 likely gives us a sweep of the highs that we've printed earlier this week and could set up for a consolidation, but at least in the higher part of the range. And until that's the case, I would keep an eye on the retest of the H4 100 MA down to H4 200 MA region, which would be a key place to defend. Again, for me, mostly because this is what's going to separate us from a new defended daily trend and a much longer period of chop fest and consolidation. So I would believe it's a key fight. I think that you need to keep an eye on the news. We have to pray that this is once again a case of nothing ever happens. We have to just one for people involved, obviously, and for people who have who are victims of all that bullshit, obviously. But if we are a little bit more egoists for our coins and for the system, the market, if slash when there was to be an acceleration of that, we could expect to see some wicks form across the board. If slash when it happens, I believe that the region you want to see defended post week or during the week are going to be the 104, I would say 103 up to 106 region. In most time frames, in most systems that I've seen across updates from people, this is the key place to fight for. So we'll see how it develops. But yeah, if we forget about this situation and we only stick to technical analysis, I would say that your two focuses are 108 and 105 as places to trade around. And obviously on ETH, it's a fight to defend H4 trend if you're focused on H4. But if you're focused on daily like me, I need to add this chart to my watch list. If you're focused on the daily like me, I think you're fine just letting it develop a little bit, let it consolidate. And if eventually you have a retest of the daily trends, it's probably one you want to buy. If it's defended again, you have a good entry. If it's lost, that's the first daily trend break since the lows, since 1.7, and that's enough to get out, basically. So with all that being said, I'm gonna shut the stream off. I'm gonna be sharing all of those chat requests and the charts that we covered during the stream in the Telegram channel. I'm gonna share the link to the channel one last time. So if you want to have access to the charts that we discussed for any reasons, you can have them in the Telegram section. And yeah, thanks everyone for joining. Thanks for the chart request. Thanks for the question. I wish we could have found more setups to trade and more setups to discuss, but unfortunately that's not the case. Hopefully for the next trade, we will have a better window, a better timing for new setups. And yeah, I will let you guys know when will be the next public stream. I would say probably either end of the month, either early July. In any case, I will let you guys know in Telegram and on Twitter. And yeah. Okay, I have to say it again, but obviously if this is kind of content that you enjoyed and you enjoyed the stream, you should know that I'm streaming that way 2 times per week in the Haven. If that's something that could be interesting to you, don't hesitate to go check the link in my bio on Twitter. It's the mandatory the Haven chill, obviously I have to do so. But yeah. Pierre, do you have a Telegram invite? I just shared the link to the Telegram channel. Okay, I saw it. It's a public channel where I try to update Bitcoin mostly on a daily basis, or at least when things are happening. But yeah. All right, lads. Thank you very much for joining. I will see you guys on either in Discord or on Twitter. And as usual, if you have any questions for me after the stream, don't hesitate to ask me questions under my post on Twitter. In a sea of bots, I still try to read comments, so don't hesitate to do so. And I will see you guys for the